Oh, we're not done yet. So we've got some early games tomorrow, so I'm doing the preview tonight before I go to bed. Yay, 13 games. Woohoo. And then tomorrow night, after the games are done, I'll have to do the New Year's preview early because we've got the Winter Classic, of course, coming up on Tuesday. So there you go, New Year's Day. Tomorrow night's games are going to be an interesting bunch because we've got some teams going in opposite directions. We've got some contending teams against each other, wild cards against each other, and teams outside the playoffs who might think they can get into them. Starting with Vancouver. The Vancouver Canucks a month ago, we were all talking about how they're done. They had a nice start to the season, but reality had struck, and they weren't that good. They've looked pretty good lately. They're 19, 18, and 4. It's the first time I can remember them being above a 500 mark in a long time. Well over a month. And they're in against the New Jersey Devils, who are 14, 16, and 7, and have to feel like they've got some momentum going for them as well. Now, when you look at their records in the last 10, Vancouver's 7, 2, and 1. They've won their last 2. On the road, Vancouver's 10, 9, and 3 in versus the East. Vancouver's 7, 7, and 2. The Devils, not to be outdone, are 4, 4, and 2 in their last 10, but they've also won their last 2. At home, they're 10, 4, and 4, which is impressive. And versus the West, they're 5, 3, and 4. So they're not a pushover against the West. They have a better record against the West than against the East. But we're still left saying Vancouver's on this nice sort of run right now, and New Jersey still looks kind of like an also-ran. This is a chance for them to start to show that they're not. Scoring leaders, Elias Pettersson, 19 goals and 20 assists. Bo Horvat, 17 goals, 18 assists. Besser, 14 goals, 12 assists. Goldobin, 5 goals, 18 assists for 23 points. And, of course, with the Vancouver Canucks, Sven Baertschi being back seems to have made a difference. He had an assist in his first game back. Let's see how he does again tomorrow. Nilsson, 3, 7, and 1, 3.01 goals against, 900 save percentage. I expect Markstrom tomorrow. Markstrom is now 16, 10, and 3 with a 2.8 goals against and a 910 save percentage. Not bad for a middling goaltender who's starting to look like maybe he's a bona fide starter in this league. His numbers are right around league average, and considering where they were a month ago, again, that's pretty solid. On the Vegas side of things, Hall, 11 goals, 26 assists. He leads the team in scoring. Palmieri, 19 goals, 15 assists. Hischier, 10 goals, 16 assists. And Zajac with 10 goals, 10 assists. Yes. Because of the format I used for the board for tomorrow, I only had room for top 4 scorers on each team. Not a huge deal as long as I don't do it all the time, right? Blackwood has a 2-1 record. I would expect him to get the call tomorrow based on the shutout in his last game. Kincaid is 12, 10, and 6. If you look at the overall numbers, Blackwood has a much better save percentage, but again, it's a very small sample size for the two, so I don't have the goals against and save percentage up there. But you guys understand that Blackwood's played pretty darn well, and Kincaid probably needed the break. Between the two, this is a series that I remember Vancouver doing very well at, even when they weren't very good in the 80s. They would play against New Jersey, and I go, okay, well, it's New Jersey. They can beat New Jersey. Even when New Jersey was very good, I'd be like, oh, they'll beat New Jersey. I'm not saying that I have that feeling now because I'm no longer in my late teens, early 20s, obviously. And I don't get that feeling about a Canucks team that can be very unpredictable from one week to the next. But they should feel good coming off of a couple of wins on the road against teams that were supposed to be playoff teams. And in the case of Calgary, they very likely are. In the case of Edmonton, where the jury's still out on that. And, of course, for the Devils, they want to get back to where they were. All right, that last year is what I mean, not necessarily where they were like a month ago or anything. Next up, Montreal. Les Habitants. 20, 14, and 5. They're in against the 20, 16, and 3 Dallas Stars. So if you look at it, both of them have won 20 games. Both of them have lost 19. If you include the overtime losses and shootout losses as just straight losses, they're both 20 and 19. Very similar record. They've got here in a different manner. Montreal 6 and 4 in their last 10. They lost their last game. On the road, they're 10, 7, and 3. Solid record. And versus the West, they're 8 and 6. So Montreal's good against the West, decent against the East. And we'll see how they do in Dallas. Dallas is 4 and 6 in their last 10. They won their last 2 at home. They are 12, 5, and 1. Excellent record. Versus the East, however, they're 7, 9, and 1. So that makes me just a little bit little bit nervous with them is all. Scoring leaders for Montreal, it's still Domi, 14 goals, 22 assists. His scoring has slowed down, and I'm not saying anything that people can't see from just these day-to-day previews that I do, but his scoring has definitely slowed down over the last month, as could be expected. Drouin, 12 goals, 20 assists. Tatar, 14 goals, 16 assists. He's been hot lately. And Petrie rolls out into the top 4 with a 7 goals and 21 assist output. Goaltenders, I expect Niemi until Price is back. Niemi's 5-4-1 now with a 4.22 goals against, 870 save percentage. Not great numbers for Antti Niemi. Price is 15-10-4, 2.84 goals against, 904 save percentage. On the Dallas side of things, you have the Sagan, 11 goals, 22 assists for 33 points. He leads the team in scoring. Radulov, 13 goals and 18 assists. Ben, who's 15 goals, 15 assists for 30 points. And Jason Spezza, 6 goals, 15 assists for 21 points. They responded well after all of the Jim Light stuff came out the other day. Let's see if they can carry that over at all. Look, I can understand someone's frustration with Dallas. Absolutely. Totally understandable. And we'll see where it goes from here. But, of course, the media wants to make a huge deal of it. My only issue with it is this. Owners likely routinely talk about players not playing well, that they're paying a ton of money. And the big thing with Dallas is when you look at straight salary, and I was looking for the numbers on it today, not just salary cap, but just straight salary. The money these guys are making, the Dallas Stars collectively are making $85 million this year. It's a lot of money to pay for a team that might just miss the playoffs again. Now, goaltenders, I expect Bishop. Bishop's 13-9-1 with a 2.25 goals against and a 925 save percentage. Hudobin would then be the backup at 7-7-2 with a 2.63 goals against average and a 920 save percentage. Dallas is playing well. Can they take advantage of the fact that Niemi's in net, if Niemi is in net, or is Niemi going to have one of those good games that he does pull out once in a while? And because Dallas is a team Niemi played for, does he come out, have a chip on his shoulder, and maybe pull out a win? It's going to be interesting to see. Next up, Ottawa. So the Senators, who are 15-20-4 now, and they are backing their way out, are in against Columbus, who are 22-13-3. And while Columbus's record hasn't been fantastic, it's been good enough that they have an excellent chance of not just making the playoffs, but maybe this is the year they finally do something when they get there. The thing with Ottawa, very unpredictable. The Ottawa Senators are 3-6-1 in their last 10. They've lost 4 in a row. On the road, Ottawa's bad. Let's be honest. 4 wins, 13 losses, 1 overtime or shootout loss. And versus the East, they're 11-14-2. Not great numbers across the board. On the other hand, for Columbus, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They lost their last game, of course, against Toronto. At home, Columbus is 10-8-2, and versus the East, they're 14-8-1. Excellent record against the East for Columbus. Solid record at home. The numbers all seem to favor the Blue Jackets, who, have Pittsburgh in their sights. I mean, they have Washington ahead of them in their sights as well, but you have to look over your shoulder and go, so we really don't want to end up behind those Penguins, because if we end up behind those Penguins, we may end up in some trouble in the playoffs. That's all I'm saying about that. Scoring leaders, Stone for Ottawa, 18 goals, 25 assists. Shabbat, who's out, of course, 10 goals, 28 assists. Duchesne, 15 goals, 22 assists, and Dzingel rounds out the top 4 with 13 goals, 12 assists for 25 points. Goaltenders, I expect McKenna until Anderson's good to go. Anderson's 14-13-3 with a 3.58 goals against, 905 save percentage. McKenna's 1-4-1 with a 3.96 goals against, 897 save percentage. And Hogberg started the last game. He's now 0-1, 3.06 goals against, 875 save percentage. You start getting the feeling that the defense in front of the goaltenders in Ottawa doesn't help them out a whole lot, and you'd probably be right. On the Columbus side of things, Panarin, 12 goals, 29 assists. Atkinson, 23 goals, 16 assists. Dubois, 14 goals, 18 assists. And Seth Jones with 6 goals, 16 assists, rounds out the top 4. Goaltenders, I expect Bobrovsky, though Korpisalo wouldn't be the end of the world. Korpisalo's 6-2-2. His record's excellent. 3.49 goals against, 883 save percentage. Bobrovsky's 16-11-1, 2.73 goals against, 911 save percentage. The overall numbers for Bobrovsky are down off of where he's been the last couple of years, but you can expect that to improve as the second half of the season kicks in. Looking at this game, all of the numbers favor Columbus, but again, this kind of feels like a game that the underdog could come through and win. That out of nowhere, the Ottawa Senators suddenly have a 3-2 lead late in the game, and you go, wait, what just happened here? What's going on? As long as their scorers are able to work some magic for Ottawa, who knows? Maybe Brady Tkachuk gets a couple of goals tomorrow night. He's certainly been itching to get his stats back up into line with where they were early in the season, right? All right, next up, San Jose and Calgary, the battle for first in the division. And it's a battle for first that will be joined by the Vegas Golden Knights, I think, for a while. We have a three-way battle for first in the Pacific. I was going to say Smythe. It still feels like the Smythe division to me. I wouldn't mind going back to Smythe, Norris, Patrick, and Adams. I think that'd be fun. Anyways, the Calgary Flames are leading the division, 23-12-4. But San Jose, not to be denied, 21-12-7. So we'll see what happens tomorrow night. If San Jose can beat them in regulation, it means that everything tightens up even further in that division. That being said, let's take a look. The last 10, San Jose 7-1-2. They've won 2 in a row. They've been excellent. On the road, they're 9-8-3. Versus the West, however, 14-6-3. Fantastic record for them. Calgary 5-3-2 in their last 10. They lost their last game. At home, Calgary's 11-4-4. And versus the West, Calgary's also excellent. They're 17-9-2. So not a whole lot to choose between the two teams. They're both playing well in their last 10. I understand Calgary struggled over the last couple of weeks. But I think coming off of that overtime loss against Vancouver, we'll see some spirit in this one. We may even see a couple of fights, I would imagine. And we'll see how many goals are scored out of this. Couture leads the way in scoring for the San Jose Sharks with 15 goals, 23 assists. Brent Burns, 5 goals, 33 assists. Meyer, 18 goals, 16 assists. Pavelski, 23 goals, 9 assists. And Tomas Hertl, 14 goals, 18 assists for 32 points. Your goaltenders, I would expect Jones as the starter. He's 16-8-4, 2.87 goals against, 898 save percentage. Dear Martin Jones, save percentage. Let's fix it. Dell, 5-4-3, 2.69 goals against, 904 save percentage for Aaron Dell. To round things out for San Jose. On the Calgary side of things, Gaudreau, 19 goals, 32 assists. Monahan, 21 goals, 22 assists. Tkachuk, 16 goals, 26 assists. And Elias Lindholm, 17 goals, 24 assists. So the number 4 scorer in Calgary, 3 more points than the number 1 scorer for San Jose. It has been a very productive season in Calgary so far. Goaltending, I expect Riddick. He's 12-4-3 now with a 2.26 goals against, 924 save percentage. First place is on the line. I would go with Riddick. Smith, 11-8-1, 3.00 goals against, 888 save percentage. I think Smith's time in the NHL as a starter is likely wrapping up. And I've been a Mike Smith fan on and off. I remember when he was struggling in Tampa. I remember kind of being sad to see him leave Dallas. But overall, I've been a fan of a lot of his work. And we'll see tomorrow night if maybe they give him a shot. Maybe they give Smith and Jones a shot, and maybe we end up with a lot of goals in the game out of that. But again, that's why they play the games, right? All right, next up, the Oilers are at home against the Winnipeg Jets. This is another matchup between two Canadian teams, one that's 99.9% certain to make the playoffs, and another one that looked very likely to make the playoffs, 3 weeks ago? Not anymore. The Oilers are in a steep dive, and they made 2 trades today to try to fix that, and I don't know that either trade are going to fix things. On the Winnipeg side of things, they're 24-12-2. Edmonton's 18-17-3, so Edmonton's lost more games than they've won. We're at that stage now. And that loss to San Jose felt bad, just like the losses to Vancouver felt bad. And right now, the Oilers are actually behind the Canucks. They got games in hand, but technically they're behind Vancouver. Over their last 10, Winnipeg 7-3, but they've lost 2 in a row. On the road, they're 11-6, and versus the West, they're 14-8-1. And the interesting thing, of course, is that in my house, my wife cheers for Winnipeg. And she doesn't think they're playing very well right now. She's not very happy with things with Winnipeg. And I keep telling her, they're first in the West. They've lost a couple, but they're first in the West, and they can turn this around. And I get back, I hope so. So I'm not the only one that gets nervous about teams that I cheer for. She gets nervous about teams she cheers for as well. Over their last 10, the Oilers are 4-5-1. At home, they're 10-8-1. Versus the West, they're 12-11-2. So the overall numbers favor Winnipeg. The team that's playing better right now is Winnipeg. This has to be one of those games. It has to be a statement game. And bringing in Manning tells me that, you know what? Chiarelli wants a team that you really can't push around. He wants a team that plays a style of game that's really aggravating and abrasive. And you know, between Petrovic and Manning, we'll see if that helps improve things for the Oilers. I have my doubts. But, you know, we'll see. And maybe Hitchcock did have some say in what was going on and who left. Scoring-wise on Winnipeg, Scheifele leads the way with 22 goals, 27 assists. Wheeler, 5 goals, 44 assists. Laine, 24 goals now and 7 assists. Bufflin, 4 goals, 25 assists. I expect Hellebuck tomorrow night, although Brossoit has excellent numbers, and he's a former Oiler. He's 8-1-1, 2.11 goals against, 939 save percentage. If I was Paul Maurice, I would definitely play Brossoit. Hellebuck is 16-11-1, 2.88 goals against, 909 save percentage. On the Edmonton side of things, McDavid leads the team in scoring because, of course, he does. 21 goals, 35 assists. Yeah, 56 points. He's having a pretty solid season. Think about this for a second. We're 38 games into the season. McDavid's on pace for about 120 points. We're not really talking about it because we got Rantanen and Kucherov fighting it out to see who's going to hit 140 this year. Or at least get close to that. This season's scoring has been kind of crazy. Not 80s level yet, but we're getting there. Draisaitl is second in scoring with 19 goals, 28 assists, which is also a crazy total. Nugent-Hopkins, 13 goals, 21 assists. And Chason still on the board, 16 goals and 4 assists. I expect Koskinen because of what Talbot did the other night. Koskinen's 11-6-1, 2.52 goals against, 918 save percentage. Talbot is now 7-11-2, 3.30 goals against, 892 save percentage. Those numbers are not going to add up to a playoff position, but we'll see if the Oilers can muster something tomorrow night when they've got this really solid leading team in there, like they do against Calgary usually. All right, next up, Nashville. Oh, Nashville, what's going on? They are down, and right now they're at 22-15-12, which means they've won 22 games, they've lost 17. That's not a Nashville total from last year. It's not even close. Now, maybe they're going for that route they went a couple years ago where they were the number 2 wild card, and then they went to the Stanley Cup final. Be brilliant if they did that on purpose. The Capitals are 24-10-3, and the Capitals are really starting to roll. So this is a good test for Nashville, and honestly a decent test for Washington as well. Nashville's been losing, but it's been close. And you get the feeling that if Forsberg's cleared for this game tomorrow, Nashville could start turning the tide. Over their last 10, Nashville's 3-6-1. They've lost 6 in a row. On the road, they're 8-8-2, and versus the East, they're now 10-3-1. It's not that long ago. They had won 10 in a row against the East. Now they're struggling against everybody. The Capitals, 24-10-3, as I said. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They've won 4 in a row. So the Capitals playing pretty solid hockey, but they can't catch Tampa because Tampa doesn't lose anything. At home they're 12-5-2, and versus the West they're 8-5-1. I'm leaning towards the Caps on this one, and yet with so many losses in a row for Nashville, they're due for a win. They've lost. The loss against New York, the Rangers, feels like a loss they probably should have won. Not that matters to anybody else, but it felt like a loss that shouldn't have been. And we'll see if they can go into Washington and really come out of the gate fast and maybe ride that to a victory. But it's going to take a lot of work. On the Nashville side of things, their leading scorer is Johansson with 6 goals and 25 assists for 31 points. Which, when you look across the board at the top scorers for each team, that 31 points is really criminally low. Yossi, 7 goals, 21 assists. Ekholm, 3 goals, 20 assists. Forsberg, who of course has been injured, 14 goals and 8 assists. If not for the injury, Forsberg, it's highly likely he's their number one scorer. Goaltending, I expect Rinne. Rinne's 14-10-1 with a 2.23 goals against, 922 save percentage. Saros, 8-5-1, 3.05 goals against, 894 save percentage. So yeah, I expect Rinne in that. On the Capitals side, Ovechkin, 29 goals and 16 assists for 45 points. Backstrom, 10 goals, 33 assists. Karlsson, 6 goals, 31 assists. And Kuznetsov, 7 goals, 26 assists, 33 points for Kuzi. And I expect Holtby tomorrow night for the Capitals. Holtby's got a 15-8-2 record, 2.72 goals against. 2.72 goals against average, 915 save percentage. Of course, Copley's giving him, a good argument that he should play more. He's at 9-2-1 now with a 2.61 goals against, 914 save percentage. So his numbers pretty darn near identical to those being posted by Holtby, and yet he's playing on a lot of rest, and he's still putting up pretty decent numbers. So Copley's making the argument that, he's good as the backup and should probably get some more games in. Next up, and the last one on this board is the Islanders against the Buffalo Sabres. So this is a big game. For the Sabres, they're third in the division. Of course, Montreal plays tomorrow. Montreal has 45 points. The Sabres have 48. They do not have to worry about Montreal passing them tomorrow. However, Montreal wins, Buffalo loses in regulation. Things get a little dicier. And they have the Islanders coming in. The Islanders are a team with 44 points who are looking ahead to a team like Buffalo that's 4 points ahead of them and saying, you know what, we're playing really well right now. That's a team we need to chase down. Buffalo is under some pretty strong pressure tomorrow night. Now, they don't have to worry about Boston. Boston doesn't play tomorrow. Boston, of course, plays on the 1st against Chicago at Notre Dame. The 2013-4 Islanders are starting to really get things together. This is the best I've seen the Islanders look probably since the stretch drive at 2016-2017. For the Sabres, 21-12-6, they're not playing as well. 7-2-1 is the record of those Islanders in their last 10. They've won 3 in a row. On the road, the Islanders are 11-8-1, and versus the East, they're 14-5-4. Excellent records. Buffalo's 4-4-2 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. At home, they're 12-4-3, which is an excellent record. And versus the East, they're 10-7-5, which is decent. 5 overtime or shootout losses. You'd rather those were wins than losses, but not horrible. But again, the outside of that 10-game winning streak, it has been a bit of a struggle for the Sabres, which could be expected. I really thought during that 10-game winning streak that they were probably getting, going too far too fast, and that there was going to be a course correction, which happens a lot with young teams. Scoring leaders, Barzal really asserted himself last game with that natural hat trick. He has 10 goals and 25 assists for the Islanders to lead them. Bailey, 8 goals, 22 assists. Lee, 14 goals, 13 assists. And Nelson, 12 goals, 12 assists. I expect Leonard after that hat trick the other night. Leonard's 8-6-3, and of course he was a Buffalo goalie last year. 2.21 goals against, 926 save percentage. Yeah, 926, that's pretty good. Grace, 12-7-1, 2.62 goals against, 917 save percentage. Barry Trotz will go with the hot hand. It's what he does in net. Buffalo, Eichel, 15 goals, 34 assists, leads Buffalo. Skinner, 26 goals, 13 assists. Reinhart, 8 goals, 30 assists. Ristolainen rounding out the top 4 with 4 goals and 21 assists for the Buffalo Sabres. Goaltending, I kind of expect Hutton here. Hutton's 13-11-1, 2.65 goals against, 916 save percentage. Of course, Linus Ullmark, 8-1-3, 2.71 goals against, 922 save percentage for him. This is game of the night material, potentially, because both teams really desperately need this game. And even though we're almost halfway into the season for everybody now, this is an important game. And on New Year's Eve, you're going to want to close out 2018 with that big victory to say, all right, we've got all this momentum. And in the case of the Islanders, that would be 4 in a row. And then you're really starting something. For Buffalo, of course, they want to avoid losing their 3rd in a row. So there should be a sense of desperation in Buffalo's game as well, which means it should be an excellent game. That being said, I'm going to pause now and change boards. Now, on the heels of talking about a game between two teams that are fighting it out for a playoff spot, and it could be quite the dogfight. Now we've got Philly and Carolina, two teams that aren't really headed in the right direction. Both of them have won 3 of their last 10. Both of them likely not to make the playoffs. Both teams with records of 15, 17, and 5. Your guess is as good as mine on this one. This is that somebody has to win game. I have my Akbar magnets for this as a trap. Potentially it's a trap anyways. I have a desire to have magnets that say somebody has to win, preferably with a little frowny face, or shrugging, sort of, I don't know. Need a THG emoji, I don't know. And just somebody's got to win underneath. And then, of course, your game of the night, which is just this the big one. This is not game of the night right here. Over their last 10, Philly is 3-5-2 on the road. They're 8-9-3. They had been above 500 on the road until recently. Versus the East, they're 8-10-3. So for Philly, it's been a rough go. Over their last 10, Carolina 3-6-1. They've lost 2 in a row at home. They're 9-7-4 versus the East. They're also 8-10-3. So your guess is as good as mine on this one. Both teams come in pitching not particularly well. Carolina has trouble scoring. Philadelphia had been having trouble keeping the puck out of the net, but that Hart kid's done pretty well. So we'll see if he plays again tomorrow, right? On the Philly side of things for scorers, Giroux, 13 goals, 31 assists. Voracek, 9 goals, 20 assists. Couturier, 14 goals, 14 assists. And Konechny's on the board at 9 goals, 12 assists. Neuwirth, 1-2-1 record, 4.8 goals against, 835 save percentage. Carter Hart, who I expect in net, 2-2 record, 2.8 goals against, 917 save percentage. On the Carolina side of things, Sebastian Aho, 14 goals, 25 assists. Teravainen, 8 goals, 21 assists. Williams, 7 goals, 13 assists. Svechnikov, 10 goals and 8 assists for him to round out the top 4 for the Carolina scorers. In net, I kind of expect Mrazek in this because the goaltending choices made by Carolina are sometimes odd. 6-8-2 record, 2.59 goals against, 901 save percentage. I only say odd because if McElhinney can play, I would put McElhinney in here against the Flyers. 7-5-1 record, 2.31 goals against, 922 save percentage. Again, your guess on this one is just as good as mine. I would say that the fact that Carolina's at home means they should be preferred, but Carter Hart could come out, pitch a shutout. Carolina could throw 45 shots at net, and we're talking about Carter Hart for Vezina and for the Calder, and who knows, maybe for the Hart. Just think if Carter Hart won the Hart Trophy. I just, that's one of those things that I would like to see happen at some point in time, as a guy named Hart winning the Hart. Okay. Next up, Pittsburgh. Those Penguins, who have gone from being an also-ran to being pretty darn solid over the last few weeks. And in the beginning, it was that they were eking out victories. They'd get like shootout here, overtime there. And it's just, they seem to be picking up momentum now. They're 20-12-6, and they're in against a Minnesota team that desperately needs a victory. They got a big one over Winnipeg. Now you have to follow it up with something else. They're 18-16-3, which is not good enough. You don't get to the playoffs losing more games than you win. And if you've won 18 out of 37 games, you've lost more than you've won. Really pretty simple, basic way of looking at it. Pittsburgh's going to be a great test for Minnesota off that win over Winnipeg to see how real that win was. Pittsburgh's 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 5 in a row. On the road, they're 9-5-4. Versus the West, Pittsburgh's 11-3-1. Crazy good record for Pittsburgh over the last little while here. Minnesota's 3-6-1 over their last 10. They won their last game. On the road, they're 10-6-3, which is good. Versus the East, however, they're 4-5-1. Not as good. So my gut tells me that Pittsburgh should win this game. They have the better scoring. I think they have better goaltending at this stage, which I would not have given them a month ago. But I would give them that now, and they have all that momentum going for them and confidence. Leading scorers for Pittsburgh, there's Crosby with 17 goals, 29 assists. You remember Sidney Crosby, right? He's on pace for, let's see, they've played 38 games. He has 46 points. He's only on pace for like 95, 96 points. No big deal, right? Kessel, 16 goals, 27 assists. Malkin, 12 goals, 28 assists. And Jake Gensel, the $6 million man, 16 goals, 18 assists for him. Pretty solid season for Gensel, and I think anybody who looks at that contract and says, "Oh, he hasn't earned that." You didn't watch him in the playoffs last year or the year before then. Shame on you. He's a clutch guy, and you pay for those points. You pay for that through the nose. That's just the way it works. Murray, I would expect in net tomorrow night. He's 9-5-1 now with a 3.14 goals against, 906 save percentage. Matt Murray's playing very, very well. Casey DeSmith, 11-6-4, 2.42 goals against, 926 save percentage, would be relegated to backup, and I'm okay with that right now because Murray has been playing very, very well. On the Minnesota side of things, Granlund leads the way in scoring with 11 goals, 25 assists. Parise, 16 goals, 16 assists. Suter, 4 goals, 23 assists, and there's Eric Stahl with 13 goals, 12 assists. And what stands out is when you look at their top four and you look at Pittsburgh's top four, they both have old scoring compared to other teams in the league. Their top four, there's some graybeards in there on both teams. The difference is Pittsburgh has all this momentum, and Minnesota hasn't had momentum for about a month now. In goal, I would expect Dubnyk. Dubnyk's at 13-13-3 now with a 2.6 goals against, 912 save percentage, which would make Stalock the backup. He's at 5-3, 2.6 goals against, 903 save percentage. Overall, things would seem to favor Pittsburgh. Maybe with Minnesota at home, maybe with Pittsburgh being on a 5-game winning streak, maybe they're due for a loss. Either way, this could be a really kind of fun game to watch. And anytime Minnesota wears their green jerseys, they look really quite sharp. Okay, next up, really sharp. Just take the quite right out of there. The Rangers, 16-14-7 after that unexpected victory in Nashville. And this is where losing games in overtime makes a difference. They've won 3 games in their last 10, but they've only lost 2 in regulation in their last 10. So there's a glass half full, glass half empty aspect of the New York Rangers. They're in against the St. Louis Blues, who are a glass half empty team. They're 15-17-4, and even though they have a decent record over their last 10, it kind of feels like they frittered away a season. Now, it's not that they can't get it back, it's that the odds of them getting it back are pretty slim. Over their last 10, the Rangers, 3-2-5. 5 overtime or shootout losses. So when we look at it, over that last 10, that 3-2-5 isn't awful, even though they've only won 3. On the road, they're 5-10-2 after that victory in Nashville. Versus the West, they're actually 8-5-3. They do okay against the West. St. Louis, 6-4 over their last 10. They lost their last game. They're 9-10-2 at home. As I've said before, if St. Louis's home record was decent, we wouldn't be talking about this awful start to their year. And versus the East, they're 4-4. So they don't play the East often enough for me to really say whether they're good or bad against the East. And in the case of the Rangers, after a win over Nashville, St. Louis would look like a game that they should win. But this is the thing with the Rangers. They have trouble putting those 2 wins together in a row. Now, when we look at the scoring, for the Rangers, Zibanejad leads the way with 11 goals, 23 assists. Of course, he had 4 assists the other night. Hayes, 10 goals, 23 assists. Kreider, 20 goals, 10 assists. Vesey with 10 goals, 10 assists comes in 4th on the scoring sheet for the New York Rangers. Goaltending, I expect Lundqvist. Lundqvist is 11-9-7, 2.87 goals against, 913 save percentage. That being said, you're in against St. Louis. Might be a good chance to play Georgiev, who's 5-5 with a 3.20 goals against, 899 save percentage. On the St. Louis side of things, O'Reilly leads the way in scoring with 14 goals, 30 assists, followed by Perron with 13 goals, 11 assists. Tarasenko, 11 goals, 11 assists, and Braden Shen, 7 goals, 15 assists to round out the top 4 for St. Louis. And they all need to be better. Everybody in St. Louis needs to be better and more consistent. That's just the way it's been working. Goaltending, I expect Allen. Bennington doesn't have a record yet, but he has a 3.51 goals against and an 840 save percentage. Go Bennington. Allen, 13-11-4, 3.1 goals against, 900 save percentage. And when you look at the overall picture, he hasn't been good enough. But what do you do at this point if you're St. Louis, because his trade value just isn't there? So for this is a game between 2 teams that probably missed the playoffs. There's more hope for the Rangers than there is for St. Louis. But again, putting together 2 good games in a row has been a challenge for the New York Rangers. We'll see if they're able to meet that challenge tomorrow night. Next up, Florida. Yes, the Panthers. 16, 15, and 6. They're above 500 again. Yay! But they usually end up losing the next game. So they go back to the even number wins and losses. That's just seemingly the way it goes. But they're in against Detroit tomorrow night, who are 15, 19, and 6. And Detroit has been kind of bad lately. Just kind of the way it is. This has been a kind of historic thing for Detroit. I can't remember them being trod upon like this in the standings since the time before Yzerman really established himself. And boy, does this team need a Steve Yzerman now. I like Larkin. I don't see him as an Yzerman. Over their last 10, Florida's 5-4-1. They won their last game. On the road, they're 8-9-2 versus the East. They're 13-9-5. Detroit's 15-19-6 record includes the fact they're 3-6-1 in their last 10. They lost 4 in a row. At home, they're 8-9-3, and versus the East, they're 10-14-5. The numbers favor Florida, but only barely. It is not a lot to choose between these two teams. And Florida's had a problem with winning games that they should. And that's kind of what differentiates between the teams that make the playoffs and teams that don't. Is when you have that win that you go, yep, this should be W for us, it's a loss. And you snatch losses from the jaws of victory. The thing is, Detroit might be the best team at it in the league right now. So, because the difference is, I know Ottawa's at the bottom of the power rankings, but usually they're just straight out lose the games. Whereas Detroit might look like, it looks like they're going to, no, not tonight either. All right, well, I got my hopes up. I'll just put this flag away and, all right, whatever. Florida side of things, their scoring leader is Huberdeau with 10 goals, 34 assists. Barkov, 15 goals, 24 assists. Hoffman, 18 goals, 18 assists. Dadonov, 17 goals, 18 assists. I expect Luongo in this game. Not that the goaltending's been predictable either. Luongo's 8-7-1 with a 3.07 goals against, 902 save percentage. Reimer played fantastic in the last game. He's 7-7-3 now with a 3.31 goals against, 893 save percentage. And I don't know that the goaltending really matters a whole lot. I don't. I think that both goalies have their challenges. Both goalies are capable of having good games. And I don't know that it matters who Florida starts tomorrow. On the Detroit side of things, Larkin, 17 goals, 21 assists. Nyquist, 9 goals, 24 assists. Nielsen, 7 goals, 16 assists. And Athanasiou with 12 goals and 9 assists rounds out the top 4 scorers for Detroit. When you look at the goaltending, Howard's the better goalie, but he's had nagging injuries. He's 10-9-4, 2.72 goals against, 8-9-21 save percentage. If Jonathan Bernier loses many more games, can we just start calling him Tank? Because he's leading the lose for Hughes, and I don't blame him for this either. He's 5-10-2 now with a 3.57 goals against, 892 save percentage. But definitely due to his record being as it is compared to Howard's record, I'd say he's the Tank. And usually that's a term of endearment, but in this case it would be so when you're in net, that means that the team's on the whole tank thing. And it's got to be frustrating for him looking at his record and knowing he's not playing badly. It's just that's the way Detroit is this year. Maybe they get frustrated because Howard wins too. I'm making stuff up now. The last time I saw a team actively trying to lose was the Buffalo Sabres, the year they drafted Eichel, and they had their fingers crossed for McDavid. That was actively trying to lose. That was where literally if a goaltender played well, they got traded. Only case I can remember where a goaltender playing well means he gets traded. If you mention Pittsburgh in the mid-'80s and New Jersey when they were trying to get Lemieux, they didn't have goaltending for the most part. So they didn't worry about trading away a good goaltender. Next up, LA and Colorado. Which of these two teams is hot? LA, good call. LA's won 4 out of 5. And that loss they had was against Vegas, which felt like a revenge game for the Vegas Golden Knights. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of give LA a pass on that one. They're 15-21-3, which is an awful record. Agreed. But right now, Colorado's 19-13-7, which means in 39 games played, Colorado's won 19. They've won less than 50% of their games. Colorado's struggle is very palpable at this point. And it seems to be affecting a lot of things on the team. It hasn't affected the top line as much, but their scoring numbers have started to kind of come down to a more realistic level. That still means they're on pace for like 120 and 110 and about 100 points, but realistic levels, kind of. 5-3-2 is the record of the Kings in their last 10. On the road, they're a woeful 6-10-2. It's an awful road record. Versus the West, they're 10-12-1. The Colorado Avalanche are 2-6-2 in their last 10. They've lost 4 in a row. At home, they're 8-5-4, and versus the West, they're 8-8-5. So what happened with Colorado is they go back east. They play that road trip against some very good teams. They struggle. They don't win those games. And we look at that and we go, you know what? That's okay. Because those were really good teams. And then the losings continued since they got home, and even when they're playing teams that aren't necessarily like Tampa level. So, not that anybody's Tampa level. We're going to get to Tampa last on this one. But we'll see what happens with the Colorado Avalanche tomorrow night in a game that really should be a slam dunk here at home against the Kings, who, by all rights, are still the lowest rated, probably worst team in the West, probably. Leading scorers for the Kings, Kopitar, 6 goals, 19 assists. Yeah, he's on pace for about 55 points this year. So this is a big nosedive for LA in the scoring department. Iafallo, 9 goals, 12 assists. Doughty, 2 goals, 19 assists. And Dustin Brown, who's been solid since his return, 10 goals, 10 assists. Goaltenders, I expect Quick, but I'd like to see them go with Peterson. Quick, 6-9-2 with a 2.93 goals against, 903 save percentage. Peterson's 5-4-1 with a 2.61 goals against, 924 save percentage. On the Colorado side of things, Rantanen, of course, leads them in scoring with 17 goals, 44 assists. McKinnon, 23 goals, 35 assists. Landeskog, 24 goals, 20 assists. And Barrie, 4 goals, 21 assists. Of course, the interesting thing with Colorado is, as much as we talk about Hart trophies, if Colorado's losing continues like this and they were to fall out of the playoffs, I don't see a team winning a Hart trophy for a player when that team misses the playoffs. Whether that's fair or that's not, I'm not here to discuss that right now. I just want to go over the previews. But it is one of those things that I think about. With Barrie at 4 goals, 21 assists, that's a 19-point drop between the number 3 scorer on the team and number 4. So it shows that dramatic shift from that first line and how well they score together and everybody else. Grubauer, 8-4-3, 3.09 goals against, 904 save percentage. I expect Varlamov in this game. He's 11-8-4 with a 2.79 goals against, 914 save percentage. Pretty solid numbers all around, and yet they've been better this season than they are right now, and he's going to be looking to get that back in line. And the good news is the Kings are a team that struggle to score, mostly. During the 4-game winning streak, that kind of changed. We'll see if they're reverting back or if there's some legs to this. It's a huge game for LA, basically. And it is definitely a trapping type game for Colorado. But when you've lost 4 in a row, does anybody really come in that you're taking lightly? They really shouldn't. You shouldn't take anybody lightly once you've lost 4 in a row. Every game you should see as potentially life and death. All right, let's go ahead and look ahead. Go to the last game of the night, which is Tampa Bay and Anaheim. Oh, the Lightning. 30 wins, 7 losses, and 2 overtime or shootout losses. A win tomorrow night would take them to 31 in 40 games and put them on pace for a little bit above 62 over a full season. That record that I talked about earlier today that belongs to the Detroit Red Wings, 62 wins in a season. They could eclipse it. It's there. Now, is there likely a second half fall off? Yeah, they did it last year. They had a tail off that was quite alarming at one point in the second half of last season, where Boston almost passed them, and then it just didn't happen. But you can't count on that every season, which is sort of why with Anaheim at 19-15-6, you can't necessarily count on Anaheim to suddenly start winning again either. It's been a long losing streak for Anaheim, a long winning streak for Tampa. What do I say when that happens? 2 teams are up against each other. One's got a long losing streak. One's got a long winning streak. I usually say let's go ahead and call a switch here. 13 games without a regulation loss for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I would take Anaheim in this game. I know. I'll have egg on my face tomorrow night at this time. The Tampa Bay Lightning are 9-0-1 in their last 10. They've won 5 in a row. Again, they're kind of due for a loss because no team can do this forever. On the road, they're 13-3-2. Again, that record is fantastic. Versus the West, they're 9-5-2. That's surprising that their record against the West isn't fantastic. Not really. Not compared to the record against the East. Against the East, they're absolutely intimidating. They have 21 wins and 2 losses against the East. That's insanity. So they're in against the Ducks tomorrow night, who are 4-5-1 in their last 10. They've lost 5 in a row. But at home, they're 10-4-6. So they've only lost 4 in regulation out of 20 games. Technically, they've lost 10 out of 20 games at home. Versus the East, they're a surprising 10-6-2. They're better against the East than they are against the West. So this game, probably not a blowout. I would honestly, again, if I was betting, I would take Anaheim in this one as an upset of the night. Because to me, it looks like that's likely what happens. And again, it's not to throw shade at Tampa or anything. It's just, it is really hard to maintain a run like that for a full 20, 30, 40 games. Like, the longer that streak goes, the more taxing it gets. Leading scorers for Tampa, Kucherov, who now leads the league in scoring. 18 goals, 45 assists for 63 points. That's right. He's passed Rantanen by 2 points. Braden Point, 22 goals, 28 assists. Stamkos, 22 goals, 21 assists. And Johnson's on the board with 18 goals and 12 assists. Tyler Johnson is a guy that when we talk about who Tampa might have to move to keep everybody under the cap, Johnson's a name that comes up. Yeah, he's on pace for about 40 goals this year. It's insane. Goaltenders, I expect Vasilevsky. Demang's 15-4 with a 2.99 goals against, 904 save percentage. Vasilevsky's 14-3-2. So he's 14-3-2, which means his record's a little bit worse than that of Demang. 2.66 goals against, 922 save percentage for Vasi. Pretty good, not too bad. And yet, when Vasilevsky has a poor game, they just score 6 goals. They're like, don't worry, Vasi, we know you don't have it. Don't worry, we'll just score 6. Scoring for Anaheim, Getzlaf, 9 goals, 20 assists. Henrique, 8 goals, 14 assists. Montour, 5 goals, 15 assists. And Raquel, 5 goals, 15 assists. So, for anybody who's questioning my sanity and taking this as probably an upset, you'd be right to say, who's going to score the game-winning goal? Yeah, I have no idea. None. Anaheim's scoring has not been fantastic. Aberg's still their leading goal scorer, which says a lot about Anaheim's state of scoring. And their goaltending hasn't looked great the last few games either. So again, I'm just taking it based on their streaks. That's it. Gibson's 15-11-5 with a 2.61 goals against, 924 save percentage. Fully expect him to start if he's healthy, because he's got Johnson as the backup, who's 2-8, 3.36 goals against, 888 save percentage. Not good numbers for Johnson all around. And Gibson, while he didn't play fantastic in the last game against Arizona, he's your guy. He is your starter, and you kind of have to ride him. And for Anaheim, tomorrow night's going to be a very interesting game. So there you go, 13 games. Let me know your thoughts. Who you think's going to win, that kind of stuff. And whether or not you see any major upsets on this board or the board that preceded it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and do not forget to hit the like button. Go ahead and hit it. Go ahead, I'll wait. Hit like. It's right there. It's right on the... They don't do it. Yeah, so go ahead and do that, and the subscribe button as well. It doesn't harm them. It's fine. They enjoy that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.